Most High willing, we're gonna get into this information, man. We're gonna get into and enlighten our people about the Bantu, about who they is in these times, and what's we about to get into it. I'm gonna before I go into interview you, before I go into it, I wanna bring something out real quick, and and you can piggyback on it if you want to and everything. But this right here, I got this Bible right here. It's called the African Heritage Bible. Okay, the African Heritage Bible. And I'm gonna read a couple of commentaries out of here from this Bible. All right. The first one I'm gonna read is from Leviticus chapter 10, verse 10, and the commentary is dealing with the holy and the unholy. I'm gonna read this, and it say, such practices has been common throughout all Africa. For instance, Ashanti women were restricted to the Bara hut during the menstruation. The Ashanti also established a system of absolution to prevent legal uncleanliness. Okay, this is just showing how the Ashanti people, have the traditions of the unclean and cleanliness that's written in Leviticus. All right, and keeping this custom even till today. And I'm gonna read another one. All right, this is of Leviticus chapter 23. All right, dealing with first fruits. All right, and it say, when the ancient African Hebrews harvested the first crops of the season, the first fruits of their harvest was sacrificed to the Most High God. This is an African practice even to this day among such tribes as the Akamba, that's the Bantu tribe out here in Kenya, and the Kikuyu, it's another Bantu tribe out here in Kenya, out here in East Africa. All right, so it's letting you know that when we dealing with the first fruits, it's written in Leviticus 23. They actually, some of these Bantus, they still keeping some of these biblical traditions even to today. All right, and I talked to Kikuyus. I'm out here in Kenya. I talked to Kikuyus, and what I just read about first fruits, they call that it's called Magita. They call that Mageta.
The South African Bantu have the same DNA markers on the father's side that other Bantu people have, such as the Igbo, the Yoruba, the Kikongo, the Ashanti, the Fanti, the Ewe, the Ga, the Kikuyu, the Kamba, the Habagusi, the Luya. They all have the same DNA, and so you can't have somebody over here saying that we're the Israelites, and then they have the same DNA as you, and you say, no, I'm a Cushite. That's like my brother saying he's a Cushite, or my cousin saying he's a Cushite, and I'm an Israelite. But we have the same DNA, we have the same forefather, and it shows in our DNA. But in terms of the customs, they actually have, some tribes do have some Hebrew, I would call it evidence in their language. But in terms of the traditions and customs, circumcision is a big rite of passage. Cleanliness laws, when you're on your menses, and then for you're clean for a period of 7 days. On the 8th day, you're considered clean. And same thing with childbirth. Same thing with when somebody dies in the family, then the whole family that's immediate to the person that died, they're considered unclean, and they have to go through a cleansing ceremony that they have to do before they're considered clean again. And things like going to the mountain to pray, to have fast, to have intercession with God, to have festivals, fringes, the shofar. I mean, they got shofars down here, even though they blow them to the side like that. And then it's the first fruits. Like I was talking to a brother from the Zulu tribe, and he was saying how the first fruits of the harvest, they give it to God before anybody eats, before anybody partakes in it. And so just listening to the people that's knowledgeable about their traditions and customs, you start to see elements of their practices in the Old Testament. Now, whether they know or not that their practices are from the Torah, if you're an Israelite and you've been studying the Bible, then you're going to automatically pick it up and say, that's in the Bible, and you might even tell them like, hey, that's in the Bible, you know that? And they might say, oh yes, and you might even be able to quote the book, chapter, verse that it's in to confirm that you guys are the Israelites, whether you knew it or not.
So like it's kind of like you can draw that conclusion based off like a lot of circumstantial evidence, right? And you mentioned something about Shaka Zulu and how he was in basically South Africa. And one thing about movies, although a lot of times there's a lot of garbage in it, it actually be a lot of facts in movies too. Because like I know, and I'm sure a lot of people familiar with this now, but when you go back and you watch Shaka Zulu, when they were speaking about him, they said that he had the other Bantus in that area or other quote unquote Africans in that area running from him, basically how they were running from the enemies during 70 AD or whatever, like the Wandering Jews of Africa is what they call them. So basically alluding to the fact that, that those people down there in those, interiors of Africa, a lot of them actually are Bantus, otherwise known as Israelites.
Who are these people? So I want to ask you, Brother Dalton, can you explain to the listeners, what is a Bantu? What is a Bantu?
The word, okay, so the singular word for a person is Muntu, Muntu, and then plural is Bantu or a Bantu. Bantu down in South Africa can be seen as derogatory to some people, because that's what the white man used to call the people down here. They call them Bantu, and they kind of flip the word to make it mean something that's negative, even though the word Bantu is a Niger Congo Bantu word. We see people using it in the Congo, in East Africa, in South Africa. So they rather prefer a Bantu, and it means the people. And even though it can mean like a people, like a group of people standing over there, it's specifically designed to mean the people of the Most High, or the people like the Israelites. Because essentially the Bantu people are very large in number, and they stretch from, people will say East Africa, Central Africa, South Africa, but in terms of the DNA of the Bantu people, in reality, the Bantu people, if they are an ethnic group, then they're also in West Africa too, because they share the same DNA as the Yoruba and the Igbo and the Fam and the Ebe and the Ga and the Shanti and the Fanti and the Bamale, all these different tribes. I can just keep naming off the list. And they all are branched under the scientific name, or the white man's name would be the Niger Congo languages, Niger Congo A, B, and they have different branches. But ultimately, they'll also use the word Bantu people, or the Bantu languages. So this is referring to a people that are different than the African Pygmies. They're different than the Khoisan. They're different, the Bushmen. They're different than the Somalians, the Tuaregs, the Fulani, the Hausa, the Beja, the Apars, the Borana, the Nilots, like the Dinka, the Anuak, the Shilluk, the Nuer, all these different tribes, the Masali, the Fur. They're different than them, and they differ in a lot of things: their tradition, their customs, their language, their old histories, their DNA. It's a lot of things that separates them from these other ethnic groups in Africa. And the Bantu people really, if you go down to the DNA per DNA, they are the most numerous people in all of Africa.
That is true. That's interesting, man. Very interesting. I want to read something real quick. I'm gonna read this. This out of the Zanavan Bible Dictionary, because you had made a point. So I'm gonna read Ham, which we are probably familiar with this. Ham, the youngest son of Noah, born probably about 96 years before the flood, and one of the 8 persons to live through the flood, he became the progenitor of the dark races. Not the Negroes, but the Egyptians, the Ethiopians, the Libyans, and the Canaanites. So if these Bantus are not Ethiopians. These Bantus are not Egyptians. These Bantus are not Canaanites. These Bantus are not put on the original Libyans and all that. So who are these people?
Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, Ye are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, Ye are the sons of the living God.
A lot of them actually are Bantus, otherwise known as Israelites.